It's not mentioned here, but we will have an approval of the previous minutes from the last meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'm sorry, can you formally open the meeting? Can you formally open the meeting first?
I just did.
Oh, you did? Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear. So what was the request?
It's not mentioned on here, but I was going to ask for a motion to approve the previous meeting minutes.
So moved.
Okay, is there a motion to, make a motion to amend the agenda to include the approval of the minutes?
Second.
All in favor of the amendment to approve the minutes, adding to the
Aye.
agenda? Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Okay. All right. All those in favor, take a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of accepting the minutes from the last meting?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we will have a report from John Casey. I better stand up.
Madam Chair, before we move any further, I just wanted to state for the record so that everybody's aware, Mr. Chase will not be joining us this evening. He's tending to a family matter.
Okay. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, if I may just state for the record, Mr. Harden will not be joining us perhaps later. His shifts at Bridgeport Hospital have changed, so he doesn't get out until a bit later.
Thank you. Mr. Casey.
Yes, we are getting ready to start the sewer lining project, which is primarily on Barnum Avenue, Axis Road, and Park Street. And we realized that we didn't have the engineer on board for the construction administration and the construction inspection of that project. So we asked for a proposal for that for the next for that construction of that project for the next 3 months. And he gave a proposal of $9,000 for the construction administration and $18,000 for the inspection.
John, is that included in the overall appropriation that we made for that?
No, that could be done within the budget for that project.
I'm sorry, what?
This work would be done under the budget for that project.
Under that budget,
Sufficient funds
okay.
for that, yeah.
So are you looking for an approval?
Yes, this
For
would be to
that?
add this services to his contract.
Okay. And that's the slip lining project.
Yes, this would be for the construction engineering services.
Okay. Okay. I suppose we can take a motion now.
Exactly. Madam Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve the fee proposal from STV in the amount of $9,000 for construction administrative work and not to exceed amount of $18,000 for the construction inspection services work.
Is there any discussion about the addition to the slip lining? Mr. Ponte?
I'm just going to ask this. Does this need to go out to bid, or going out to bid is waived on this because this is an extension of their current work?
Yeah, this would be an amendment to their contract. This is for the professional services for the construction phase engineering. The project for construction did go out to bid, and we awarded that about 2 months ago.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other discussion, questions? All right, let's move to a vote on the motion to add, what was it again? Could you repeat the?
Sure. The total amount on it is going to be $27,000, but it's $9,000 for construction administration work and not to exceed amount of $18,000 for construction inspection services.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any other discussion? All right. We'll take a vote. All those in favor of adding that?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. If you want to continue.
The project for the design of the 6 pump stations is just getting underway. So we have nothing to report on that, but we are getting started. Pecksville Pond pump station, contractors working along there. I haven't had any issues, and he's continuing to make progress, and he's on schedule and on budget. And then finally, the coastal resiliency we have an opportunity to apply for a FEMA grant for a project that would meet the criteria that we're proposing for that project, which is to protect critical infrastructure by constructing flood control measures around the treatment plant. That's something that we had a concept design done during the coastal resiliency study, and we had put it on our capital improvement plan submittal, and I believe that was one of the things that was funded when you approved the budget for the capital outlay contingency of $775,000. The makeup of that number was in part for coastal resiliency, which we had budgeted for a design phase in the amount of $200,000. So you haven't necessarily specifically appropriated that $200,000 from that line item in the budget yet.
Right. We haven't.
But in the meantime, we've got this opportunity to apply for a grant, so I asked the consultant who did the study and did the conceptual design to prepare the grant application, and their fee for that was $4,500. And we'd like to take that out of the capital project for the coastal resiliency.
We can word the, yes.
Madam Chair, I know that this is on the agenda to follow Mr. Casey's report, but since we're speaking of this, this is in my district, and I feel very strongly that we should be doing everything possible to protect the town against the impending sea level rises. So applying for these grants is very smart. It's an opportunity that we shouldn't forego. We should certainly, and hiring consultants to help the town put in compelling and competitive grant applications. This grant application would be, this is a nationwide competition for funds. So it's something that's beyond the scope of the normal work of town employees, and it's necessary to get experts in order to submit really competitive grant applications. So I think that we should do everything that we can to protect the town against the sea level rises. This grant is the first opportunity that we have to be really smart about this. And so I'd like to make a resolution to engage the firm at the cost of, this is $4,000, Mr. Casey, but I heard you say $4,500?
Yes, it was $4,500.
At the cost of $4,500, not $4,000.
Okay.
So I'd like to be able to engage the firm to provide documentation and apply for a grant from the Coastal Resiliency FEMA Pre-Disaster Mitigation and Flood Mitigation Assistance Fund.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion's made and seconded. Is there a discussion?
Yeah, I have a question regarding this firm. How was it selected? Is it a firm with any kind of background? Was there? I don't remember being on a committee or to select.
No, I think we actually hired them before your term, but
Okay.
it did go through a selection process. What we normally do to hire a consultant, professional service. This was for a coastal resiliency study for the entire town, which was completed, I think, in 2016 is when they completed it. Mm-hmm. And part of their scope of work, we had specifically asked them to look at the treatment plant as one of the items of critical concern, and they did a conceptual plan, and you've seen that plan. I think we sent a little copy of it out in the past. So, they're a very large engineering company. They've done work for the federal government, for the Army Corps of Engineers, and for FEMA in this type of work.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to make one comment. After looking at television and looking at Houston, I say, God help us. And I asked John today, I said, John, what would happen if our sewer plant was overcome with water? It wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Think about it. Anyway.
No, I was just, our thoughts and prayers are with the people of Houston and the surrounding area. Watching the news before coming to this meeting, it's really quite terrible. It's horrible what is happening, the catastrophe there. I have read, and Mr. Casey met with me, and we went through the coastal resiliency plan extremely carefully, and I was very impressed with the quality of the firm. If you haven't had a chance to read the report, I had copies made for each council person because the maps are hard to read online. But if you look at the sea level rises that are projected and how they will impact the town, there are many areas of town that will be impacted. So as, you know, when we're in the public works meetings and we hear about the different streams that go through town, all of those become rivers with the sea level rises. So, you know, the most immediate grant is to build a levee around the water pollution plant, the water pollution control plant, that would protect it that would mitigate the super high tides that will become even higher when the sea level rises. So this is very important to do, and I'm really impressed with the quality of work that this firm has produced for the town thus far.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments to be made? All right, we have a motion to appropriate $4,500 to actually conduct the grant application, which I'm sure the grant will be a lot bigger than $4,500. And this company is very familiar with all of the documentation that needs to go through. And I'm not sure, John, did you say it was like 2 weeks is the deadline?
Yeah, so we have to submit to the state before we submit to the federal government. So
Okay.
we submit to the state by September 15th.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion before we, yeah?
I just have one question. What is the potential, what's the maximum one can get under this program? What's the maximum dollar amount?
I didn't bring the grant specifics with me, but it is a national grant. I think it's $250 million nationwide. I don't recall if there's a minimum amount of the grant. So we would be applying. I think our project was about $4 million. So we'd be applying for that, and hopefully that's a middle of the road type of number for the feds.
Okay, great. So we're talking about 0.01% of the potential
Is there any
grant
other
for
discussion?
return on investment. Yeah.
Okay, we'll take a vote on it then.
I'm sorry?
I said if there's no other discussion, we'll vote on the measure. All those in favor of the measure, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I like to do that. Anyway, okay, next, is there any further reporting?
No.
John, thank you. We have a report from Tom Hyde.
Good evening.
Not the chemical part of it, Tom,
Good
the other part.
I forgot.
Although, excuse me, before you start, I do want to ask you one question. What is our maximum gallons per day?
Our maximum flow
Yeah,
per day?
that we could possibly handle?
Well, we're rated at 11.5. Our maximum is up between 25 and 30 million.
No, but I mean, if the town got bigger and bigger, what would be the maximum that the current sewer plant could handle?
25 to 30 million.
25 to 30 million?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right.
That may not be complete processing. We should be able to handle that without violation.
Okay, thank you.
I wanted to start off, it wasn't on the agenda, by introducing Tom Bucell. He did get to meet most of you on the way in the door, but he is our new process control supervisor. I'm just giving him the opportunity to become familiar with what goes on here and how the town works. The monthly reports I included in the email that the past 3 months for May, June, and July. I'm not going to go take up your time. I saw that this wanted to be a brief meeting. Everything is in pretty good condition with an exception of the nitrogen, which we started violating in April. We are still in violation. Well, we are above our permit. At this time, at the end of this month, we should be back into the correct realm, which is an average of 356 pounds per day. This isn't out of the ordinary. This is very standard. In April, most of the plants along the coastal line will go into violation, and then they will work it back down. We are, in fact, 3 to 4 months where we were above the average, which is standard. I did the average on the last 4 years. We're right in line with where we should be. At the end of this month, we'll be back into the green. So there's, at this time, no reasons for concerns, excepting large hurricanes coming our way do create additional violations, but we go through every fall trying to avoid those. Are there questions on these reports?
I have a question about what we were in violation of. Was it the nitrogen?
Yes. Yes. Nitrogen is a secondary concern. Our main concern is bacterias and basically taking most of the debris out of the water. We take about 90% of the impurities out of the water. The nitrogen is a requirement also, but it's secondary. What it does is it can create growth, excessive growth of algae and so forth in the rivers and so forth. So what I chose to do this year was, in previous years, we would bleed some of the solids out of the facility for a period of time and stay just within permit. We lost solids on April 3rd or 4th, where we're at a 27 million gallon day flow, and that's when our pumps broke and so forth. And we lost solids on that day, and we didn't let any solids go for the rest of the year to date. In trade-off, we had to turn off some of the equipment, which helps remove the nitrogen. When we got through that season, we turned that equipment back on, and the numbers came down very nicely. Next year, we hope to be doing considerably better. Tom has assured me that, never mind, I'm not going to play with him tonight. But the reality is the reporting that we were using when I took over let us know where we stood on the nitrogen anywhere up to 6 weeks behind when there was an issue. You know, it would take us 6 weeks before we'd really see it. We are now within 8 days of tracking things, so if things start to go south, we'll be able to respond to them quicker, which means that next year should be a better year. But we are right on average, right where we should be at this time.
I just have one question with that. Last year, I think we got 93, was it 1,000? Or we got a lot of money.
Yeah, it was right up there. We were
for
143
nitrogen from the state, yeah. For a good record, whatever it was. Was it 93,000 or 93 million? Couldn't it be 93 million?
Thousand.
Must have been 93,000.
If it was million, this would be a happy town.
Do you think we'll be close to that this year?
That is impossible to tell. There's a formulation that is based upon everyone improving their nitrogen removal. And what it is it's a balancing scale that this program pays for itself. The violators put dollars in at currently it's $6, almost $7 a pound that they lose per day. And the benefit was about $2 a pound. But as more facilities control their nitrogen, less is being put out, therefore there's less put into the program, therefore there's less paid out, so it reduces every year. In reality, that $93,000, which was down from about $190,000 a year before, we actually did 20% better on our scale, but we still were reduced by 50%. So there's no real way to project what's going to happen with this year, other than we should be in the green. Other questions on the report?
Yes, Mr. Pond.
It sounds as if something happened. I'm not an expert in this field, so it sounds like something happened in April that made our nitrogen levels bad. Is that right? Is that the interpretation? That put us over what our limits are? And that we had to release solid waste into the river? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, we lost some solids. High rain events, typically April, March, April.
So I'm sorry,
Occasionally we will lose some solids.
when you say
And
lost some solids, what does that mean? Does that mean that it went into the river?
Yes. And whenever that happens, we report it to DEP. And their response was, so did every other coastal plant in the wake of this storm coming through. It's just, it happens in the spring because we have very high flows. It's, we are still removing 95, 98% of the impurities. But there's just too much coming through the plant for us to handle. There's a limit to what we can do. And, you know, we're designed to treat 11.5 million gallons a day. And when you have a 27, 25, 30 million gallon a day flow coming through, you cannot control everything and you do lose some solids. But the reality is it's fairly well diluted because along with everything else, our flows are 2.5 times, so it's already diluted before it comes in. It's kind of complex, a little bit more than I can explain right here without the data in front of me.
Okay, we may have to take this offline, but Ms. Antezo at the very beginning of the meeting asked what our maximum capacity was, and I thought you said 25 to 30 million gallons per day.
Correct.
But then we went over 11.5 million gallons per day in April, right? And you said that
27 million.
we got up to 27 million.
At that same time, our effluent pump broke. We had some other issues going on. The main issue was that we had a high flow coming through the facility.
I guess, so going forward, my question, I mean, even though it's somewhat treated, having solid sewage ending up in the Housatonic River is very disturbing to me.
It is not sewage.
It's not sewage, it's solids.
What comes out of our plant goes to a process where it's broken down, things are separated, it's chemical reactions. Basically what we do is we accelerate nature.
Okay.
And we lost some impurities, but no, we are not putting sewage out.
Okay,
Sewage
that's good
is
to know.
more what you see coming out of your septic tank or out of a septic truck being dumped into.
Okay,
There's
so that
nothing
did
else
not
like
happen.
that going into
Okay.
the river.
Okay, again, I'm really not an expert in this field, but is there anything going forward that we can do to improve the quality of what ends up in the river so we don't have any solids being released?
We are at
Is there anywhere that you need more funding or that that more work needs to be done on the pump system so we have that assurance?
our requirements are 85% removal.
I'm sorry?
Our requirements are 85% removal of impurities. We're running at 96%.
No, overall it's great. You know, the
Overall-
performance is great. I'm just
It-
wondering, you know, even though we're great, I want
I
to
was
be
trying to
even
give you a
greater.
I was trying to give you a precise answer, but
Yeah.
we are doing very well.
Okay.
We're always trying to do a little bit better. I mean, that's what Tom and I work on every day. And so does everybody else in the plant. We're always fixing things. The plant is coming together very well. But being in the upper 90s, we're in fabulous condition.
It sounds like a pump had been broken, and so I guess I wonder if there's anything that can be done to have more safeguards with pumps so they aren't
Proper
broken when we need
maintenance.
them.
Proper maintenance.
So is there proper maintenance going on with the pumps
Oh,
now?
we're working on it diligently. Yes, we're.
Yeah. Thank
That's our
you, Ms.
area of
Manis.
focus.
Thank you, Ms. DePonte. Ms. Manis had her hand up before.
So to go along with what Ms. Ponte was saying, to clarify, I heard you say that there was an event and that that you turned off specific pumps or machinery that works to raise the nitrogen levels. And then after the event, those things were turned back on, and that is why there was the dip in the nitrogen. Is that correct? Is that what
No.
you said? Right, so what did you say?
We have equipment we use to recycle the nitrogen, to activate the nitrogen, to activate the bugs that eat the nitrogen. Some of this equipment is mixers and blowers and so forth that stir the stuff up. We have blankets of material in our tanks. When you have high flows, you do everything you can to let those blankets settle down so that the high flow can go over the top of it without carrying the blankets of biosolids out into the river. So you turn off some of your mixers, you turn off some of your blowers. When you do that, you turn off your recycle pumps. The recycle pumps put us back into the non-aerated areas which release the nitrogen. We turn those off to keep the solids in our plant. It does not allow us to remove the nitrogen as effectively. It's a cost of doing business.
Okay, thank you.
Alan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Tom, in looking at these reports, I see that the report for May is dated June 26th. The report for June is dated July 19th. Moving forward, regardless of whether or not we meet as a group, can you see to it that these reports are sent along to us as they're issued?
Certainly. This was the first time that I experienced us canceling 2 meetings, so I wasn't sure how I should have handled that. I'd be happy to forward them to you when I print them.
Not a problem. Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. Nothing further, Madam Chair.
Mitzi.
Mr. Scott? Sner.
Mr. Hyde.
Barrington. I'll get it all out.
It's a long name. You'll get it eventually. Mr. Hyde, when you mentioned before, I just want to go back to the solid waste loss. Is there a way to regulate or calculate how much was lost? Like, do you know how much?
Every day.
What was that?
Yes, we do that every day.
Okay, so do you know how much was lost back in May?
Not off the top of my head.
Is there a way now? Is there any kind of harmful aspect to it? Even though I know you said it's 98% treated, correct? Is there any harmful aspect to it in a large quantity?
We're regulated by the state, by the federal, and the EPA, and we report any violations to them. If we created any abnormal situation, they would have addressed it. We have the oyster beds across the river from where we're letting out. We report to them. We stay on top of that. That's what we do for a living, is make sure that we are not creating health hazards.
Is there a way you can get that information to us?
Which information?
What I just requested of how I'd just like to know how much I know how many gallons of solid waste did we lose compared to, I know you said that this happened before and it's happened other places, but is there 10 gallons to a million gallons? You know what I'm saying? There's a big difference. So is there a way to tell us how much was actually lost on average? Do we lose waste? Do we lose solid treated waste over time?
When you have an opportunity, why don't you give me a call and drop by the plant?
What was that?
When you have an opportunity, why don't you give me a call and drop by the plant? And I'll show you what we're talking about.
That would be great. Thank you.
Mr. Khan?
Thank you, Chair. Tom, in layman terms, I know for a number of years there may have been neglected maintenance at the plant. That was at least hearsay, and over the last couple of years, you've done significant work to catch up, and whether it's safety related for the personnel or it's just the whole process of keeping us within regulations, and as you said, vastly exceeding regulations. We're not at 85% waste removal. We're up around 96, 98. So in short, I wanted to say thank you for your diligence in paying attention, and it's for the betterment of the environment, and it's good for the town. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Did you want to move on to the ultraviolet thing, which I think
Yes, the ultraviolet disinfection system repair. As you recall, a couple months back, the mayor authorized a $17,000 expenditure for some emergency repairs to the UV system, some bulbs and some parts that had become damaged. This was also during that April 3rd, 4th event. Ongoing evaluation of our UV system in conjunction with the emergency repairs of the 17th April have disclosed additional repairs and upgrades are required. We had Suez, who now owns Ozonia, the original manufacturer of our UV system and the sole source of parts and service, inspect and test our system. The conclusion is the system suffers from years of improper or no maintenance and requires a list of repairs and upgrade. The repair and upgrade have been quoted at $178,196.25, which includes parts, installation assistance, and a 2-year warranty. Now, this repair, I have given you each a copy of the parts list on that. $50,000 approximately is light bulbs, $72,000 is an actual control panel upgrade. There's another $40-something thousand, the second item on there. I don't recall what it was. Actually, yes, I do. $35,000 for ballast cards. This is going to do a couple of things. The system needs some upgrading. The parts that are in our system are obsolete. And in the near future, as the parts start to burn out, they're no longer going to be available. And so we're going to have to upgrade to the next level. This part, so because we'll be doing that upgrade, it'll give us some improved control over the system. Right now, because the system is not correct, we're running 324 400-watt bulbs 24 hours a day. The system does not require that, but it's running at 100% because we can't measure, we can't get the readings out of the system. It's too old to tell us where we are to make sure that we're meeting permit. So to make sure that we meet permit for the state and the federal governments, we're running it wide open, which is what we need to do. And it'll give us improved redundancy. Again, during the April event, when that pump failed, we got a high water level within our plant, and this UV system almost went underwater. We have 9 modules in this system. One of them, a couple of the bulbs actually floated and caused it to cause the system to fill with water, and we lost 11% of our system. We're very fortunate. We're probably an inch of water from losing the entire system. I took a look at this because we are supposed to have redundant systems, and I didn't understand where the redundancy was on this system, and it was in the controls of it, but it didn't really allow for that type of disaster. This will allow us, we have, like I said, 9 modules. There are 3 rows of 3 modules. This will allow us to pull 1 row of modules a couple feet up out of the water and control the other 2 systems so that if we have a major failure again, we will have 3 backup modules sitting there waiting to drop into the water. The quote that I gave you was back in 5/17. We didn't have confidence in the system at that time, in what they were selling us at that time. It took more research to find out what was going on. So we had gotten a second quote, which just the parts to get it running again is $100,000. The actual upgrade portion of it is $72,000, and it's something that needs to be done at this point.
Tom, I have a question for you on this. I noticed there's going to be a 2-year warranty, and actually the statement that there was improper or no maintenance previously leads me to believe, was there no record kept on an ongoing basis? I know the system's 10 years old. It was put in, I understand, when the whole plant was upgraded 10 years ago. So as part of their warranty, are they going to come and do inspections? Or what does the warranty mean?
They're going to warranty the parts. They will stand behind us and give us information. It's also, they're giving us installation assistance. They are not giving us installation. Our people, 3 to 5 of our people, are going to be involved in the installation and the upgrade of it so that we have people in-house that understand our system. We had 1 or 2 people in the past that had an understanding of it, and they both left us a little before Pete did. And at least one of those was the one that was responsible for shortcutting a lot of other systems. So as we put this together, the goal is to end up with talent within our facility and backup talent within our facility that know how to monitor and maintain this system.
Okay. And I'm assuming you will keep records of updates
Absolutely.
and inspections.
Absolutely.
All right. I just want to make a comment with the $178,000, which is a lot of money, but if you'll notice from when we passed our WPCA budget, and we had $311,000 surplus. So normally the surplus goes into some fund, don't it? I forget the name of it. Anyway, we can transfer and pay this amount from that excess amount that we have. So I think if you want to get started on it and the system is having a problem, we probably should have some sort of a motion to, right now, make a motion to appropriate this amount of money, and we do have it. As I said, we've had excess of $311,000. Alan?
As a means of furthering along discussion, I would make the motion to approve the quote of $178,196.25 to move forward with these repairs on the UV system.
Second.
All right. Is there any
Discussion?
Yes, discussion.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Tom, my question's around the life build, repair, or replace type question. So we're repairing an existing system, but are we doing it to an extent that will give it another life expectancy of, say, 10 more years? And what would be roughly the average annual maintenance cost of replacing bulbs or other anticipated expenses? So if it would say, can we replace it for $300,000 versus repair it for $170,000? In the long run, is this?
First question, would I expect 10 years from it? Tom and I are far more serious about maintenance. Tom and I are also probably 2 of the 5 people that are going to be learning a lot about this system as it goes together. Previously, it lasted 10 years with minimal maintenance. I mean, there were wipers that haven't worked in years. There were pieces that were bent that nobody repaired and so forth. So I would imagine that with proper maintenance, if you can get 10 years out of it with no maintenance, we should be able to match that. That would be my goal. As for replacing it for $300,000, no, millions, $1.5 million, possibly 2. I don't. Am I off? That's the kind of money we're looking at. And there's another half a question in there that I forgot.
It was everything requires maintenance and whatever it takes to maintain the system, buying lamps, et cetera. That's going to be part. Do we need to increase our maintenance budget?
I don't have the answer to that yet. I'm still in the repair mode, and I don't have anything to base it on.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Ponte.
I guess there are a few things in this paragraph that are a little disturbing to me, and maybe the first thing isn't out of the ordinary, but the sentence that we had Suez, who now owns Ozonia, the original manufacturer of our UV system, in the sole source of parts and service, inspect and test our system. So it sounds like we are stuck with them. Nobody else sells these parts. and we had them tell us what parts we needed. Was there any independent verification that this is indeed what needs to be done now? Or are we relying on them as the sole source entity to tell us that we need to spend $178,000?
Unfortunately, 10 years ago when they redid the plant and they put a semi-experimental system into our plant, they are the sole source. I hear, can't we buy the light bulbs anywhere? No, the light bulbs are wired to fit into special harnesses. It's their unique system. The alternative is to call somebody else in, not to look at revamping this system, but what would they offer us for the system?
No, I think the alternative, if I may interrupt, I think the alternative is, I mean, I don't know if consultants like this exist, but well, I guess a lot of this just has to do with lighting, right?
Yes.
So you can kind of tell pretty quickly. Perhaps you, independent of Suez, can tell whether parts of this need to be replaced or upgraded.
I don't think they're simple lights.
I'm sorry, Ms. Antezo, I have the floor. I think, I mean, to have the manufacturer tell us to spend $178,000 without any independent verification is a little disturbing. If you tell me that you have independently verified that they're correct, that this is what we need, I'm much more comfortable with that then. Or that somebody else independently verified that this is what we need. I understand that they're the sole source of the parts, but I hope that they aren't the sole source of information as to what parts we need.
Some of it is obvious.
Okay.
As for a backup verification, John, can I bother you by asking you how we might go about that, being an engineer? Would that be possible?
Can you use the mic, please? So we can hear the answer.
John was,
I was just suggesting that possibly, we can have an engineer who designs these treatment plant facilities to take a look at it as well and give an independent assessment. So, for instance, we have Ty and Bonds working on the pump station. We could ask them to come look at it.
I mean, I guess, again, this is not my field, but I just am not comfortable with the supplier telling me to spend almost $200,000 without any independent verification. That was the first part that's disturbing to me. And the second part here on this paragraph that you provided was that the system suffers from years of improper or no maintenance. And I'm just afraid that this improper or no maintenance, that was the same issue that we were hearing about in terms of the issue in April with solids being released into the Houstonic River, that there was limited maintenance, which exacerbated the problem. There's limited maintenance of the pumps. So I hope that this isn't something that keeps going on with WPCA, that there isn't a maintenance schedule that we're adhering to, because we really do need to keep on top of this equipment and not letting things get to the point where suddenly we have a bill for $178,000.
The only comment I would make is they've got to recognize this is all 10 years old.
Right, but
that's part of it, like
sure.
A 10-year-old car isn't a brand new one.
Right, and yeah, you're right. A 10-year-old car all of a sudden needs a lot of maintenance, but sometimes at the 6-year point, they also need some maintenance too, and at the 8-year point, they need maintenance. It's not always everything at the 10-year point. So those are my two comments. Maybe Mr. Llewellyn can tell me whether or not the verification part is necessary.
Thank you. Ms. Manis?
Hi. So one of the things that I've learned in working with government stuff and buying things, and I feel your pain. You got a piloted thing, and now you're stuck. We have the same problem. I know it sounds silly, but with the laminators in the tech schools, it's the same idea. We have to buy our stuff from this one supplier all the time because we have a special kind of roll that nobody else sells. But the thing that I don't have a problem with is that when our copier breaks, we call in Rico that does the copy machine. They tell us what parts are needed, and they fix it because we have a maintenance contract with them. Same thing happens when I bring my car in to Lexus. They tell me what's wrong with it, and they're the supplier of the parts. So I really don't see an issue or needing a third independent party to tell this, but what I would wonder, and I don't know if this happens, is if in the world of sewer treatment plants and all of these machines, if there is a maintenance package that could be purchased so that these issues with maintenance that are happening would be mitigated. So like when you get a computer, you have the choice of buying the maintenance package or not. When you buy a copy machine, you have the choice of the maintenance package or not. When we buy these items, do we have a choice to sign a contract for maintenance with these folks? So that, I know we had the issue with one of the pump stations with the wipes and how they get into the grinders and then they destroy it. You know, it might behoove us to have that kind of a maintenance or service contract, but I don't know what the prices are on that. I'm just wondering, is that something that they even have?
Thank you, Ms. Manis. Did you have your hand up before, Alan?
Yeah, I have a question, but I'd like to let them answer Ms. Manis's question first.
Yes, we have in fact been evaluating different, not just maintenance packages. Whenever you purchase something, somebody will offer you a maintenance package, and at each purchase you evaluate whether it's the appropriate thing to do or not. Yes, we have also evaluated purchasing maintenance packages that we could apply to the entire facility for tracking everything that's going on and some of the expenses that are going on, so that budget-wise, in the end, you could figure out where the dollars are really going and what you really need for the next year. Some of those things take a little bit more time to do. What has changed in the maintenance world? I think most of you are aware that I've stepped in, and I've been after maintenance since the minute I got here. Additionally, our maintenance department, we have an acting foreperson, and he's doing a fantastic job. I mean, 3 months ago, I was being told that I'd done more in this plant than some individuals had done in 15 years. I'm told that the individual that I have filling in has done more in the last 3 months than the last fellow had done in 10 years. So there's a whole lot more going on these days. There's a lot more going on with the maintenance. Unfortunately, in that maintenance, we are still under the repair mode, and that's going to take a little bit of time. But as we are in the repair mode, we are gathering information as to, we've lost track of what kinds of pumps we have in which stations, or we're not familiar with where it's most readily available. So we're gathering that information, and we're planning on putting it into an Excel program so that we can monitor what we're doing. And we've got tanks that are going to come down on a bi-monthly basis to be lubricated and so forth and inspected so that we do not have breakdowns. I would like to back up a little bit because I have somehow misconveyed when we lost some solids. The main cause of us losing solids was that we were at 27 million gallons a day flow. And as I said, between 25 and 30 million gallons a day flow, we can handle it, but we're not doing 100% like we could be doing. You're going to lose some solids at those flows. And we may be in slight violation, and we need to get them back quickly. But that is, again, relatively standard operation, and it happens very rarely, as in it's happened once this year, not 15 times this year. We don't have the 32 violations that our neighbors do. We're in very good shape.
Thank you, John. Alan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to kind of follow up on some of the discussion from before, oftentimes what happens is when you get yourself into a sole source situation, you are pretty much beholden to that manufacturer, that selected party in terms of your maintenance. I mean, look at what we're looking at right now. It's a $200,000 repair and 2-year warranty versus a $1.5 million upgrade. So they kind of have us in a difficult spot here. So my question to Tom would be, is that if you could go back 10 years ago, are there sort of more open, user-friendly, ultraviolet disinfection systems that would give you, more options to have more than one supplier for parts and repairs, or are all of these systems pretty much sole sourced?
I can't give you an honest, straight answer to that question. I'd like to digress a little bit and realize that as we started to look at this, and as we almost lost the system because we not only had that high flow, the UV system almost getting lost, and the solids being lost happened at the same time. The causes are two different things, but we don't want to mix the two. But the high flow inside our plant was because simultaneously our second pump broke. The one that we had repaired broke down, so we lost that pump, so we couldn't pump out quickly enough. At the same time, our tide gate failed. And I managed to open the tide gate enough to let a little bit out, to just lower the channel to keep us from losing the system, and then we closed it up, and that gate completely failed, which was lucky because we couldn't open it again anyway. The tide had already come in, so we were very fortunate. So I was looking for, if the whole thing went under, where's the redundancy? What would we do? And so we started off looking at this more in the line of what we've got to be looking at is a completely another channel and another UV system to back us up, and we're talking in the millions of dollars again. So we were trying to get away from that millions of dollars again and look for a way of how do we get this system working properly and get to the redundancy. And we've cut that number by 90% down to 178. Did I do that math right? I dropped a digit. Anyway, 178,000, and I'm much happier with that number, and I can continue to research it and see what else we can do to bring people in. But at the same time, I want to move this forward expediently.
No, I completely agree with you, and I think you've done a fantastic job with the operational challenges that your job presents you on a day-to-day. And, I think all of us sincerely appreciate, all of your maintenance efforts, and, we look to you, as an expert in the field. And so that's why I was kind of just, looking for guidance. I mean, I'm involved in the, contracting and construction community, and I've seen, where there's more open architecture and where there are more, closed sole source, situations. And I know that some of those situations can't be avoided. But I was just wondering if, there, were options in the UV disinfection system market where you can, kind of have it be more user-friendly so that kind of there's more options for parts and service available other than just going back to the installing company.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
What I was wondering was, John Casey made a suggestion that possibly the engineers from Ty Bond could look at this situation, and I'm wondering whether we should discuss possibly putting off the vote till the next meeting on the motion. I don't know.
Now.
Ms. Zentesa?
Alan's shaking his head.
No, I think we should move forward. I mean, I think maybe in the aftermath of the repair, we could have Ty and Bond kind of give us a post-repair analysis and report. But due to the critical nature of this system, I don't see any reason in holding up on Tom's recommendations. It's also comforting to know that there is a surplus and the funds are available. So, I think we should continue working with Tom and sort of doing, the post-game assessment, but we should let the repairs go forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Phil?
More of a comment than a question here, really. As an independent person or a person who works for the WPCA, Mr. Hyde, or runs the WPCA, you were hired to look after this stuff. And this is your job, and that's what you're doing.
Correct.
So I want to say I appreciate it. I want to take your advice and use that advice and move forward. So I think we should pass this.
Is there any other further discussion on the motion?
Yeah,
Mr. Ponte.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Taking another look at this list, the particular list here, this does seem reasonable, and I am more comfortable after hearing this discussion that this wasn't simply a sole source sort of thing, but that you used your independent expertise to affirm what was in this list and that the $178,000 is reasonable. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Khan?
Thank you, Chair. Just kind of reiterate what I said earlier, and what other members of the council have said, that you're not only going to build redundancy in the system, you mentioned like a 3x3 setup so one can be elevated and kept safe. You also mentioned redundancy in the human resources, that you'll have a number of people trained in the operations and the maintenance, et cetera, and that you inherited a system that for many years was neglected. If there were maintenance contracts, we didn't buy them. If there was opportunity to prevent breakages, we didn't step up and prevent that. We didn't change the oil in the car, to use that analogy. So for the last 2 years, we've really gotten back on track. I think we're gleefully grateful, Tom, that you've stepped in with that role and that you're developing a team of individuals who are very committed to maintain that highest quality standard and to monitor your progress so that you stay on top of things. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. If there's no further discussion, I think we could move to a vote on the motion to appropriate 100. I have the figure somewhere. $178,196.25 for the upgrade and repair of the ultraviolet system. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. There we go. Okay. Back to the agenda. I would like to form a committee.
Madam Chair, I believe
Yep.
there's an item 3 on Tom's report relative to the backup generator emergency repair.
Oh, I'm sorry. I went back to my agenda. Sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
Quite all right. The backup generator, emergency repair.
Thank you, Alan.
We've talked about this a little bit in the past. I just brushed upon it. It's a Cummins V16 diesel engine on our backup generator. It's got multiple coolant leaks. The repair requires 3 professionals for 2 10-hour days. Backup power generation ability is required during this period to support the plant. We've looked at a variety of ways to deal with this. Initially, when the plant was being, when the upgrade was going through, Pete had requested that when they put this backup generator in, that they put a matching one in. And the outside engineering firm that was running that show thought that wasn't necessary. He said, well, then would you please give us hookups so that we could put rental generators in if we had an issue like this. And they didn't want to do that either. They went forward with a straight proposal. At this point, we need the repair. We don't have the backup generators. We don't have the backup repairs. Let me step back a minute. That backup generator would have been is currently $1.2 million plus installation, about $1.5 million. If we went with buying 3 generators and wiring them in, we would be at about half that, $778,000. To rent generators and set the systems up properly so that they can just come in and be plugged in, hooked in quickly, so that we can do the repair. The total thing, including the repair, is down to about $153,000. We've continued to work on this a little bit, and as I was speaking with one of the with the main contractor that does all of our generator repair, not just for the plant and in our dozen generators out at the pump stations, but also for the town, also for the hospital, several of the hospitals and so forth. He believes he can tie this together for $56,000. So we've brought the number down considerably. We could go towards that number, but the repairs are about $25,000. They are 3 professionals from Cummins that have done this job 5 or 6 times before. They've got to tear the top of the thing off. This is one of those motors that, when it's on its frame, stand a little bit taller than I do, and the rental generators end up running between $18,000 and $25,000, and tying them in is another $6,000 to $10,000. we can bid on the rental generators and so forth, but I would recommend moving forward with the professionals. I know there are other Cummings mechanics out there. I know that they're probably going to be at the same numbers or close to, and these have skill in actually doing the job that we're looking to get done. And this is becoming an emergency also because we're in hurricane season. The reason that we found out about this is that this was a redundant system. It was a three-phase electrical redundant system. When the first system failed, they turned off the alarm. When the second system failed, they turned off the alarms. When the third system failed a couple months ago, the generator just started in the middle of the day one day. We didn't know if we should shut it off or not, because if it just started on its own and something's wrong in the electronics, is it going to start again if we need it? So we let it run for 12 hours. Running for 12 hours, the thing started losing coolant out of some of the top seals. So if we have a hurricane or something come through at this point, we know that after 12 hours, our generator is going to be losing coolant, if not sooner, and it was from several small places on the top of this engine. So we need to address this rapidly. We can go out to bid for the generators and tying them in and so forth, although in this discovering what happened with our electronics and so forth, the contractor that has been working on our system has been an intricate part of figuring out how our system works. And I believe that we're going to lose a lot of time, energy, and expense having someone else go through and understand that system. But it's up to you. I can ask purchasing Wednesday to start taking bids, or we could move forward on this. I'm not 100% sure how I should be asking this.
Madam Chair?
Question?
Since this, you're essentially asking, I think, for professional services, there are many different issues that you discussed.
Yes.
One was having a professional services contract, I believe, with a particular individual who's already familiar with the electrical system.
Correct. At
the plant. I'm just not sure, and I sure wish a town attorney were here. They should be, I think. In whether this comes under the charter and the clause that allows the mayor to hire professional services people without going out to bid. Ms. Antezo, as chair of WPCA, are you knowledgeable of whether we can do that without going out to bid and offer a professional services contract to somebody?
Well, I was going to ask him how he's financing the repair currently. Is that part of contractual services?
No.
Yes.
There were many different issues, it sounded like. One was a professional services contract, and then the other one had to do with equipment, and that's a different type of contract, right? So it sounded like you needed not the $56,000 for the 3 smaller generators. If I heard you right, you need approval, it sounds like up to $78,000.
56,000 should do the.
Yeah, but you're saying should do the trick, but but if it doesn't, I don't want you to have to come back to us, because it also sounded like there was another way of doing it that cost $78,000. You can talk by standing up if you want.
You can
You
stand
can go
at,
to that
at
mic,
the podium.
if that helps.
Is it in the back of your calf?
We have a masseuse here, a massage therapist.
I'm a medical licensed massager. Put your foot up against the wall there and just stretch your back of your calf. You should be good.
I'm okay now.
But it sounds like it sounds like it would be better if we gave you approval up to $78,000 rather than hoping that $56,000 does the trick
I believe
for the
I
equipment.
believe his point is that he wants to rent and tie in the smaller generators, and that's the cost of the $56,000.
I thought there were two different ways of doing
while
that.
the repairs are going on.
Right, but I thought there were two
let
different
Tom-
ways of doing that. Could you clarify?
Mr. Khan?
The total cost, Tom, there's like multiple components. One is labor, one is the rental, and then there's a tie-in mechanical part. Is it an all-in cost of $56,000, including
No.
the Cummings diesel?
That includes the labor?
Rent and tie-in, yeah.
Everything.
Oh, then I'll make a motion to approve $56,000 for the labor and the rentals of the temporary generator so this can be done.
Second?
Any discussion?
Yeah,
Alan?
Does anybody else have further questions? So, Tom, approximately how old is this generator?
10 years with the renovation.
Okay, has it been tested and turned on monthly? Because it's my understanding from what I do in the construction industry and what I do at critical needs healthcare facilities that generators are supposed to be tested monthly.
It's on a program to start monthly basis.
Okay, but during those tests, it doesn't run for 12 hours, and it's when it ran for this 12 hours that you then noticed that the coolant was leaking in multiple places.
Correct. We had previously had a couple of hose leaks a couple of months earlier,
Okay.
and we had resolved those, and then, yes, that 12-hour period roughly out for it.
Okay, so this is one of those things that couldn't get chalked up to kind of a maintenance not properly done sort of issue. If it hadn't run for this amount of time, you wouldn't have known that you had the coolant leaks. Okay. Yeah, and I understand with generators at a certain point, the valves, the gaskets, the hoses, the connections, the couplings start to go and they have to be swapped out. I'm somewhat familiar with both Cummins and Kohler generators, so I know that if maintained and properly cared for, they're wonderful products. They last for years and years and years. They're very dependable and very reliable. The other thing I just want to comment on quickly is I read in your item 3 here that the $56,000 was the cost just for renting and tying in the 3 smaller generators. So that having been clarified, I too am comfortable with this at the $56,000 level. I think it's fantastic that we're going to bring in Cummins guys to work on their own equipment, and that the technicians being brought in have done these type of repairs before. So we're not going to be, some new guy's guinea pig, learning on the fly. So again, good for you, and thank you for bringing this to our attention. Nothing further, Madam Chair.
I had failed to mention that these gaskets fail. They were a fabric-type gasket, and they have upgraded them to a higher-grade gasket so that it won't in the future.
Good to know. Thank you, Tom.
Ms. Manis? Thank you.
I have a series of questions, just a couple. How many generators do we have at the plant?
We have this one main backup generator. We currently have a loaner backup generator sitting next to the headworks, and we have a small portable backup generator that we use to go around to the pump stations when we have failures there.
So there's 3. There's the big one that we're talking about, and then there's a mid-size and then a small? Is that what you're saying?
Correct, and then our pump stations, many of our pump stations also have backup generators.
Okay. So I know Mr. Chase did a lot of work on this. Are we talking about repairing all 3 right now, or just the main one?
Just one.
Just the main one. Can I ask which one Shelton borrowed?
Not this one. I
Not this
wondered if we could bring in one the same size and just plug it in where it was, and the cost of getting one there would be prohibitive.
So this was not a generator that was loaned anywhere? Or-
Absolutely not.
No,
Thank you.
Tom, just to further clarify
Mr.
that.
Chase is not here. I had to ask that question.
The V16 generator is about the size of a tractor trailer. Maybe a little smaller. Yeah. Okay, not something you could tow behind an SUV or a pickup truck.
Don't take it camping.
Thank you.
Yes, we do have a motion, right?
Yes, when we're discussing the
For
motion.
56,000.
Ms. Thank you, Madam Chair. So we're just fixing one generator, but we have other generators. And are those generators also bad? Are they also in need of repair?
No, a couple of years back, the generator, Joe, if you will, Joe Palmari, with other name's not going to come to me right now of his business,
I'm sorry,
Had a conversation with Pete. and
Yeah, I'm just asking to see whether this, I mean, if we're doing one, perhaps we should have a schedule of repair for all of them.
2
that
years
need
ago,
it.
Joe started going over our generators. He's gone through most of them. There are a couple of them from the 70s that during the pump station upgrades are most likely going to be replaced.
Okay?
Any other questions about the motion to appropriate the $56,000 to rent and tie in 3 smaller generators while they're doing the repair on the big one?
And that includes the professional services, not just the rental of those generators.
I'm sorry, what?
That includes the professional services.
Yes.
It's not just for the rental of those generators.
I see.
I did miswrite that.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any other comments?
Move the question?
She's about to call for the vote.
Fine.
I was just going to ask for a vote. Now we have to vote on moving the question. All those in favor of moving the question?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, fine. Now we can move on. I'm sorry. Thank you, Alan, for calling that to my attention.
Yeah, it's kind of important as September's approaching. Hurricane season will be here, before we know it.
Can we build a wall in 3 weeks?
All right, we're almost done. I wanted to form a committee. Actually, I'd like everybody to be on the committee to review suggested new bylaws governing the formation, composition, and conduct of an independent WPCA board to oversee the Stratford WPCA.
Question.
Yes.
Is this something that the WPCA board is going to be doing on their own, or is this something where we're going to be opening it up to the electorate in town?
That's a good question. I think we could get input from the town. I think first we need to meet to just have an idea where we're going with it, because, and we would feed these back to our lawyer who would put it in correct legal language if we're going to have a set of bylaws. That's the way I'm picturing it.
Ms. Anteza.
But I would think that we would have hearings and ask people for input.
I just feel like talking about this tonight without a town attorney present, we're going to probably have a lot of questions, and we don't have anyone here to answer them. I'm thinking maybe we should just table this item until next month.
What would forming the committee? We don't need any legal opinion on it. We can formulate a committee.
Form the committee just without members.
Exactly. Basically, we're going to have open discussion about constituting an independent WPCA board, and then I think we should have a town attorney present when we meet as that subcommittee, and then before we go any further with it, we should then solicit public input based on where our conceptual conversation goes.
Right. Yeah. Mr. Ponte.
Madam Chair, can I just ask, if your desire is for us all to be on it, then why start a subcommittee? Why not just do this as part of the WPCA committee? But I'll agree that this room isn't real conducive to this sort of work. So maybe for those conversations, we could go into 213 and still have an open meeting, but not necessarily in this room. But if you want us all to be on it, I think it should just be on the
the only thing
regular
I'm
meeting.
thinking of is if we have everybody on it, I'm concerned about. Well, maybe a subcommittee. Anybody know what the laws are for the subcommittee? Do we have to have a quorum
Yes.
for a subcommittee?
Yes.
Yeah.
We do.
Yes.
Or maybe we should just have 5 legal people or 4 legal people so
And
we can get to.
Ms. Anteza, this is why I was
Then
saying, like,
whoever shows up, shows up.
even a question about that's something the town attorney can answer, and we don't have a town attorney here to answer.
Well,
that.
no, we just got the answer.
What was
We
that?
need a quorum.
No. Also,
They've been on
just about
subcommittees.
subcommittee, because from what I know about subcommittees, because I did form one for the ice rink, was that the chair of the committee actually forms the subcommittee, puts the members on it, and then it's just voted by the board or the commission as a whole.
Right.
So, as chair, from the town attorney opinion I have, would mean that you would appoint the members of the subcommittee.
Right.
Yes.
I'm appointing
And-
everybody.
Go. Then again.
You're not getting out of it,
So
Scott.
Mitzi will schedule a meeting. If you're there,
So,
you're there.
so as Ms. DePonte
My
just
only
said,
concern is the quorum size. Maybe we could have official, I'll have to think it through.
well, then it just kind of goes back to what Ms. DePonte just said, is if we're all going to be on this subcommittee, why wouldn't we just have, if we want to meet in 213, have a special meeting of the WPCA and have that as an agenda item, instead of having an actual subcommittee?
Because we have other business to contend with. I think
Not if we have a
I'd
special
rather do
meeting.
it separately, and I like the room 213. It's a little easier to do a subcommittee
Yeah.
meeting.
I just want to be clear, Madam Chair, that if we're all on it, that's fine. And the idea of a special meeting or just putting it on the agenda of the regular meeting, and we can always move into 213 for those discussions. And I just want to be clear that what we're talking about isn't a subcommittee, it's a committee. Because we aren't, WPCA isn't a committee, it's a board. So, okay.
Well, I'm going to take Scott's advice. I will appoint the committee. I'll let you know. How about that? Okay. I am going to move on to question 5, or topic 5, I should say. We have listed under equipment, and it's on the CEP. However, since we passed a budget and the money for these vehicles are coming out of our budget and have been budgeted for in our regular WPCA budget, and we're paying for it, it's not bonded, I think we can move forward and ask for RFQs for purchase of a vehicle for the supervisor and a truck as described in the WPCA in the 1718 CEP. I have it with me. If anybody wants me to find it, I'll do so. But I believe, Tom, it was the truck. I'm trying to move this stuff ahead. This is the darndest thing to go through, I'll tell you that. Anyway, Tom, on the truck, was it the 350 with the plow and spreader, or the 550, we're only going to do one of them, Mason dump plow and sander? You've got 2 trucks listed under capital equipment.
Correct. Both of them were going to be equipped with plows and sanders. I was going to ask which one you were looking at.
Okay, which one do you have the greatest need for right now?
Yeah, 550.
Okay. So, essentially, the WPCA owns these as opposed to them being town rentals and that type of thing?
Well, I was told that because they're 6-year items, that the funding actually comes to the general fund. And so that we may not be able to move forward on this evening. But I think that may be what you were speaking to in the beginning here.
No,
so
these items are coming straight out of the WPCA budget,
Okay.
our operating budget now.
Then
Yes.
if you purchase
They're
them,
not coming
they will
out of
be
the general fund.
WPCA's.
Pardon?
When we purchase them, they will belong to the WPCA.
I see. Okay. So, as I understand it, you're going to give your vehicle to this gentleman here, whose name I keep forgetting, I'm sorry.
Tom Busell.
I just got your card. Yes, Tom Busell. And then you will also have the dump truck with the plow and sander. Okay. Now, do you initiate the RFQs?
No.
I mean, we should put out a request for a quote.
I would initiate it through purchasing.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, just to clarify before we kind of have any kind of side discussions related to what this is, you're looking for a resolution from us as the WPCA to issue an RFQ. And so, as Tom just mentioned, what that would mean is that would mean we would authorize our purchasing department to solicit bids for the vehicle, and there are various providers and car dealerships and car people that get involved in bidding on
thank
these.
you,
And so
Al.
it's just the bidding process. We're not
Yeah.
talking about actually spending the money or
Exactly.
committing money or making an allocation tonight.
Right.
This is just a resolution to issue an RFQ.
Yes, and I was unclear as to whether we said issue the RFQ or whether Tom issues the RFQ. I don't know.
Now, I believe it would have to be done through central purchasing. I don't believe Tom or us as the WPCA
yes,
have
right.
the
It goes
ability.
to Bonner and, yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, so we would just have a resolution.
I would make the motion that we issue the RFQ for the purchase of a vehicle for the WPCA supervisor
Vehicle and the truck.
as listed on the agenda.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Khan?
Do you have a question over which two vehicles we're asking them to?
I believe he just indicated to me that he wants the dump truck, plow, and sander as opposed to just a kind of a, I guess that's a smaller truck.
We use these vehicles to maintain
Yeah.
15 to 18 pump stations plus the plant. We get a lot of
There were
debris to
3
vehicle.
vehicles in the original CEP,
Yes.
and we're asking for 2 here.
Yeah. And the reason I'm doing that is quite frankly, I don't know what the total was on that now. It may be 3. I'm not sure. We can do that later.
But Mitzi, for the purposes of issuing an RFQ, they'll put together a package for whatever they're instructed to obtain pricing on. So we may as well get pricing for the third
Yeah.
vehicle while we're getting pricing for these two, rather than have to do a separate
You're
RFQ later.
absolutely right. Okay, show that to him. Yeah. Okay, that's good. See, the budget just says a blank number. I forget what it is, what, 330,000? Is it something? But it wasn't broken out, but that's the breakout, yeah. Okay. So we can ask the RFQ for the 3 vehicles, 2 trucks
Madam-
and the van.
Madam Chair, if I can ask, if we're issuing it for all 3, should we be issuing 3 separate or 3 as a package?
No, I would think because these 3 are kind of similar vehicles in style and purpose, they should be issued as a package. So, Madam Chairman, what I'd like to do is I would like to make a friendly amendment to my own resolution and request that the RFQ be made for an administration vehicle, a Ford F-350 truck, and a Ford F-550 Mason dump as listed in the capital equipment for fiscal year 2018.
Is there a second to his amendment? Second.
So we're
All
good.
right.
We can continue discussion and then vote.
Yes, discussion.
Yeah.
Mr. Conti?
May I just ask, why are we specifying the maker? Shouldn't we be just asking for the function,
It was
for
spec-
vehicles that have the following
They're
functions?
specifically listed in the budget as administration vehicle, Ford F-350 truck, and Ford F-550 truck,
Yeah.
F-550 Mason dump.
No, I
And I
understand.
just think for the means of having the purchasing department
Sure.
follow through on what we're requesting, if the descriptions all match, there'll kind of be less questions, and we can just get these 3 vehicles priced.
But if a Nissan or a Chevy or other makers have the same function, why are we tied to Ford?
Is there a reason for that, Tom, or
Or
will
Toyota
alternates
or,
be accepted? Because we can also provide direction to purchasing department to write into the RFQ that or equals can be submitted, and then if somebody wants to submit on a Chevy or a Toyota or
Whatever, yeah.
I think there's a couple of items here. One is, I'm not sure about the RFQ because I believe we get government pricing. And on government pricing, I don't know, it's 15, 20% discount off everything, and basically there's an established price that the government buys vehicles at. purpose for the Fords would be to be in line with the rest of the town and what our mechanics are working on, because they had to replace the entire fleet of vehicles for the town a couple of years back, and that Fords are what they're using. I'm not sure if it's
Okay, fair enough.
quality. I'm not sure what the reason is, but it's working with the rest of the town.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah. Is there any other discussion about Alan's amendment, which has been seconded, which is to do it all in one package to get the RFQ? I don't know how. I have a question for you, Alan. How can you determine, unless they give you individual prices for each one, they'll have to do that with the package?
Yeah.
Okay.
The purchasing department will know how to issue this. And actually, because of the level of description that's in the fiscal year plan, it'll probably be one of the easier RFQs they issue this year.
Okay, thank you. Now, Tom, you mentioned something about a discount that under some other purchasing plan, but the thing is, even if you get the RFQ answers, you don't have to take them, but at least have something to compare it to, I would think.
I'm sure that when we turn it over to purchasing, their knowledge is going to be way beyond mine.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm sure that purchasing will know where to go with that. I know that there is government pricing on vehicles, and that we buy that. I've actually seen the printout of the pricing on the vehicles and so forth, but I don't know the details as to how it's handled.
But purchasing will know.
Purchasing will know.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on the amendment that Alan said to put them all in one? If not, we'll vote on the amendment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we have to vote on you amended the original motion, which is to make the RFQs. Okay. Let's vote on the original motion, which is to make the RFQs. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Kids asleep in there again.